Yesterday, Donald Trump finally seemed to accept that this is not going to be sort of an easy road that we're going down, and that in fact, many Americans might end up losing their lives. Here is what he had to say.
We're going to go through a very tough 2 weeks. And then hopefully, as the experts are predicting, as I think a lot of us are predicting after having studied it so hard, you're going to start seeing some real light at the end of the tunnel. But this is going to be a very painful, very, very painful 2 weeks. When you look and see at night the kind of death that's been caused by this invisible enemy, it's incredible. I was watching last night Governor Murphy of New Jersey say 29 people died today, meaning yesterday. And
Okay, so JR, there you had him admitting that we're going to have a very difficult 2 weeks, a very, very painful 2 weeks, and he admitted hearing that in one area, 29 people had died just overnight. And so, like, he's accepting it's going to be very bad. That's good. I kind of wish that he'd been talking about this 2 months ago, that if he had, perhaps Fox News would have felt freed up to admit that it's going to be bad. Not just because, people should understand what's going to happen, but because governors and mayors could have put social distancing policies into effect earlier. We know that some places like DeSantis in Florida still, he seems to think, well, we've closed down some beaches, but do we really have to go crazy over this thing? Perhaps if Donald Trump had reached the point he did on April 1st, and because of that date, I'm a little bit worried that this is all some sort of April Fool's joke. Maybe we would be better equipped nationally to deal with this.
Yeah, so with anything else, with the job of any other nature or significance or importance, if your track record tells us that you don't take things seriously until it's gotten to a point where it only affects you, I don't take you seriously until I know for sure that it affects you. But even then, what happens is you'll protect yourself and not the people that are affected directly.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, man. There's gonna be no way that I'm gonna take anything he says as any kind of a positive warning going forward.
Yeah, and especially as we're going to get into how directly contradictory what he's saying now is to what he had said before, the perception he wants you to have. And so let's play one other video. This is going to be Acosta, who asks him about the seeming turn in the way he's talking about this. And here is what Trump had to say.
I think it's very
important. It was going to be this severe when you were saying this was under control.
I thought it could be. I knew everything. I knew it could be horrible, and I knew it could be maybe good. Don't forget, at that time, people didn't know that much about it. Even the experts, we were talking about it. We didn't know where it was going. We saw China, but that was it. Maybe it would have stopped at China. We wish we could have killed it in China, but it didn't happen. It started spreading to Europe. It started spreading here. It started spreading all over. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that we have an incredible thing.
So I love that video because he says, I knew everything. I knew it could be bad. I knew it could be maybe good. And look, I know that he has the worst vocabulary of anybody who regularly has a camera shoved in their face. But what the hell are we supposed to think you mean when you said you were looking at the situation in China and you thought maybe it could end up being good? And also, let's say, really fast, let's say hypothetically it could be good in that maybe it wouldn't spread all over the world, even though people were definitely worried about that at that point. You don't just watch it week after week after week. You do something. We could have used the CDC being spurred to start spreading, producing and distributing tests all around the country. Wouldn't it have been nice to have a 6 or 8 or 10 week advantage on that? We could have had that, but you apparently knew everything and did nothing. And so
it's either a lie that he knew everything, which of course he has the opportunity and the means to know everything and do nothing. Or, we did get Wilbur Ross. Let's not forget, Wilbur Ross did get in front of cameras. And when this is all starting, when we thought it was only something that was going on in this particular section of the world over in China. So he said this could actually be good for the economy because he was thinking it's going to put their economy in decline, their production in decline, and then those things would actually come to affect us positively. That's where he was like, oh, I was thinking maybe it'd be good for us because we, again, thought this is so foreign and it goes to these enemies of ours, these economic enemies of ours. So therefore, we'll let them take care of it, and they're going to be hurt, and we're going to reap the benefits of this. Again, not preparing for the possibility of things coming this direction, which his only preparation for that actually was travel bans, which he was trying to put in place. And he's bragged about how that he was in the forefront of travel bans. Again, let's go back to your track record. No one trusts your track record on travel bans because you flippantly put those in positions before out of racial animosity towards a particular group. We know how you operate, so no one wants to hear about your travel bans when you're talking about blocking another country from having any travel here.
Yeah, and also that, like, if that was what you believed was the only thing that needed to be done, and that's what you did, let's say hypothetically everything he says about his view of travel bans was true. Right now, as of my reload, there are 205,000 cases in the United States alone. Already almost 500 new deaths reported today. Does it seem like the travel ban worked? Maybe restricting travel would be a good idea, but also prepare for the inevitable likelihood that it would not keep the disease out. And if people, even if 1 or if 2 or if 10 people get over, then it could spread. So maybe we should be ready for it. But he still wants credit for something that has obviously not succeeded. Imagine at this late date still thinking that you deserve credit for something that clearly didn't stop more than 1/5 of a million people getting the disease as of today, let alone in a week or two.
Yeah,
and really fast.
Sorry, go ahead. Go.
I want your reaction to this too, because this is something that we've been talking about for a while, but this was a slide from the press conference yesterday. And look at the look on his face as he gazes at how many people might die if nothing is done, and how many people might die. The goals of community mitigation. So the goal is 100 to 200,000 deaths. And he looks at it like I might look at the menu of a restaurant when I'm not particularly hungry. Like, really, do I have to deal with this? Honestly, do I have to? And understand, like, he could put pressure on states across the country for a national social distancing stay-at-home order. He can't necessarily force it, but if he wants to pressure states, he's not shy about doing that under normal circumstances. If he really wanted, if that was really a goal, he could be pursuing it far stronger than he is now.
Yeah,
and that's the goal.
So give me this screenshot. Okay, yes, he's looking at this curve, right?
Yep.
The main thing is he doesn't understand it. And maybe they tried to brief him on it beforehand. Maybe they tried to give him some clues about what he's going to be looking at as he gets to this point. But it's a confused child in a classroom setting that's been called in front of the class to explain his the lesson of the day, and he's unable to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, straight up, I know there's a lot of childlike connections and comparisons we make of him, but they're too obvious for us not to.
Yeah.
It's a daily illustration in how woefully unprepared and honestly unwilling to learn that this guy has. And again, this is not new. This is new. It's not new. We've heard about it from the beginning. And this is people that had Trump derangement syndrome and people that were just hate the president just because of who he is and all that stuff. That refuse to believe. He's shown us from the beginning. He's uninterested in learning things. He's uninterested in reading. He's uninterested in briefings that are longer than a page with a bunch of pictures. Yeah. All this was said beforehand. This shouldn't be surprising to anyone, but we weren't paying attention because we said, yeah, it'll be okay. It's Donald Trump, right?
Yeah, what's the worst case scenario? I mean, nothing bad ever happens in the world. Nothing that actually requires leadership or understanding or respect for expertise or anything like that. It's just the world.
Yeah, which goes to my other point. There was pandemic preparedness sheets put together back in September of last year, specifically within his administration, put together for the potential for something like this to happen, how it can affect the economy, lives, and worldwide on a pandemic. They called it something like a flu-like pandemic, but didn't, of course, call it particularly this. And their gauges were based off something that isn't as deadly or as contagious as this is.
Yeah.
There was guidelines put in place to approach something like that. They were ignored as well as an Obama administration era worksheet or a guideline put together after they went through everything with I want to say swine, but it wasn't. It wasn't swine flu. It was Ebola.
Yeah.
So that was put together after after they went through that, and whatever mistakes or whatever accomplishments they did put together as a guideline. Yeah. Ignored, put aside, collected dust on the shelf.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.